Hi there, and welcome to this session on the Arts Integration Continuum. I'm Susan Riley, the founder of the Institute for Arts Integration in STEAM, and today we're going to be diving into quite a bit of information. We're going to explore the basics of the arts integration approach to make sure that we're all speaking the same language. Here is what we'll cover: what arts integration is and where you are on the arts integration continuum, the roles of each educator in arts integration, crafting a vision for arts integration as a research-based approach, and seeing the world through the arts as an access point. Now, there are lots of definitions out there for arts integration. And just like many things in education, everyone seems to have a definition that works for them. In my own experience, I have found many of these definitions too long with too many components in an effort to make sure that we cover all the bases. Here's what I know for sure. If you confuse people, you lose people. So that's why we're going to work with a straightforward definition of arts integration. Arts integration is an approach to teaching and learning through which content standards are taught and assessed equitably in and through the arts. Now, let's look at a few key components of this definition. First, this is an approach. It's not a curriculum. This is not a prescription for teaching. So as an approach, you use arts integration when it's the best fit. You don't use it all the time. Sometimes we see schools who are so used to traditional curriculum that when they want to shift to arts integration, administrators say they want to see each lesson using arts integration. But that's not realistic. You use arts integration as an application of learning. Second, this is a standards-based approach. So in order for something to be an arts integrated lesson, there's really only 3 criteria that I'm looking for. You've connected a content standard, so ELA, math, science, social studies, with an art standards that makes a natural fit. Both of those chosen standards are taught equitably throughout the lesson, and both standards are assessed. Now that sounds easy, but think about this. When was the last time you looked up another set of standards different from your own content area? It's not enough to just use another content or arts area. You have to have a lesson connected back to standards. Now, my litmus test when walking into any classroom who is teaching an arts integrated lesson is to ask, what standards are you teaching here? If the teacher can tell me both the content and the arts standard being taught, I know that this is going to be a solid arts integrated lesson. Third, this approach is about teaching and assessing both the content and the art standards equitably. Not equally, not the same, equitably. Both are addressed based on the requirements of the standard selected. It's about connecting these standards and assessing them intentionally, not as an afterthought. Now, while these 3 components seem simple, this takes a lot of practice. Many times we'll see something and think, that's a fun lesson, but it's not really arts integration because there's a lack of standard connection or a lack of intention. Now, for example, I once had a 2nd grade teacher ask me if I would teach her students the song 50 Nifty United States for an arts integrated lesson on learning the names of all 50 states. I politely said no. First of all, the song is rhythmically and melodically inappropriate for 2nd graders' singing ranges. Secondly, the song was being used in service of the true intent of the lesson, which is learning the 50 state names. The lesson wasn't intentionally teaching any music standards at all. The music was simply a means to an end. Now, the same could be said of creating shadow boxes to show the order of the planets, or creating pinwheels for peace as a community project. The arts in these examples are being used in service of something else, rather than being taught and assessed as an equal partner in the lesson. Now, arts integration generally happens over time as people truly begin to understand what the process looks like. I like to think of this as a continuum. Now keep in mind, none of these stages of the continuum are wrong. They're just the stages that people go through on the road to implementing high-quality arts integration. Let's take a look. Enhancement is when you're using one area to support or service another in a lesson. Now, this can happen no matter where you are. If you're an arts teacher, you can easily use a science or math concept to enhance your lesson, just like that second grade teacher was using music to enhance her social studies lesson on the 50 states. Again, this is where many people start out, and that's okay. It's just not arts integration. We need to call it what it is. It's enhancement. There's also little to no discussion between content and fine arts area teachers in the enhancement stage. Now, theme-based instruction is a lesson based upon a theme that is common in two areas. So there may be some discussions surrounding the theme alignment between the content and fine arts teachers about the lesson. But this is really a stepping stone towards looking at a common thread. Inquiry-driven instruction is a lesson where a concept is addressed between a content and arts area, and both center around an essential question. Now, there is discussion and planning surrounding the essential questions between the content and fine arts teachers about the lesson, and maybe even some lesson collaboration. This can take on a lot of different looks based on the scheduling and flexibility available in a school. Next up is a co-taught lesson. Now, this is when a lesson is co-taught by teachers in two or more areas. The planning occurs between the content and fine arts teachers about the lesson. And again, this can take on a lot of different possibilities. It may look like a project where one part is taught in the ELA classroom and the arts component is taught in the arts classroom. Or it could be that the ELA and arts teacher teach the lesson together in the same room. And finally, we get to arts integration. This is when the lesson is co-planned by a content teacher and a fine arts teacher and is grounded in equitably teaching and assessing standards in both areas. The planning occurs between the content and fine arts teachers about the lesson, and the lesson can either be co-taught or individually taught within a single classroom. This happens after each standard being addressed has already been explicitly taught on its own, and an arts integration lesson is being used as a way to apply student learning in an expanded context in order to provide a meaningful learning experience. Take some time to consider where you are on this continuum and where your school or your colleagues are. Keep in mind, it may change depending on the lesson, the class, or even the day. Wherever you are, just acknowledge it and look at the steps you need to get to arts integration. Now, sometimes teachers question what their individual roles are in the arts integration approach. What are they responsible for? So it's important to be clear on who does what and why before jumping in. This way, everyone has a clear picture of where they fit into this approach. The role of the arts teacher is to teach their arts content first. They need to teach the skills and processes of their art form if our students have any chance of using them as an application of learning. Now, this is a huge advocacy tool for arts teachers. Arts integration requires more dedicated arts instruction, not less. Many arts teachers worry that they will be replaced by classroom teachers teaching arts content and that it would be diluted in some way. But that's not how this works. Arts teachers are the only ones who have the experience and training to provide the best possible skills and processes in their respective art forms. So they need to focus on teaching those things during dedicated arts times. They are also a collaborator in the approach. They can definitely co-teach arts integrated lessons, and they should be a partner in collaborative planning efforts. They can also model arts techniques for teachers and students. And finally, they are arts advocates. They are the folks who design and put on gallery shows, arts nights, and can share art strategies and techniques at PD events. These teachers are able to help document and share the arts with all stakeholders in the community. The role of the classroom teacher is to teach their content directly first, and then work in collaboration with the arts teacher to create and implement an arts integrated lesson that helps students apply their learning. Classroom teachers also need to teach the skills and processes of the content areas first, which is why arts integration is an approach. It's meant as a way to provide relevance, context, and creation into the learning process. Classroom teachers are also collaborators. They can also co-teach lessons, work in collaborative planning with arts teachers, and can model content strategies and skills. And finally, they can also support in arts advocacy by participating and even contributing to gallery shows, coming to the arts nights, maybe even offering to help coordinate them, and in sharing arts integration strategies and lessons during PD events. Each teacher is a valuable partner in this approach, and each teacher has something extraordinary to offer the other. It is a true collaborative effort. Now, one thing to always remember about arts integration is that it's backed by over 30 years of research. If you go to artsedsearch.org, you'll find all the published research studies on the arts integration methodology. And if you cull through all of them, you'll find that research consistently supports that integrating the arts is a high leverage strategy in improving student understanding, application and presentation of knowledge, as well as increasing attendance and removing behavior barriers. Why? Well, here's a few examples from the research. First, access to the arts and using them in the academic curriculum positively affects the cognitive abilities that are assessed with standardized test scores. Second, using the arts within the classroom to teach academic subjects have led to significant increases in achievement for diverse populations. And third, it affords students the opportunity to learn a concept that is personalized to their own learning style. And if you need some solid numbers, here's what all that research shares on typical results from using arts integration. 10 to 15% higher on standardized achievements for all students. There's a 15 to 20% higher score on standardized achievements for minority groups. There's a 20% or more on standardized achievement tests for special education populations, an increase. There's a 5% or more increased attendance rate and a 20% or more reduction in documented classroom disruptions, including detention, suspension, and expulsion rates. And this, my friends, is just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many reasons for using arts integration, and everyone has a different one that stands out. Now, for me, I find that arts integration provides an access point for all learners. Your reasons and those of your school community may be different. That's why it's important to dive into the research and find out all of the benefits to this approach. Then it's time to take that research and use it to craft your vision for what this looks like in your classroom, school, or district. To do that, you'll want to consider what's our why. Now, getting to your why isn't always so straightforward. If you were to gather everyone on your staff together and ask, why do we want to use arts integration? You'll either get a deafening silence or one or two people giving their opinions. I'm sure that you can imagine this. Instead, it's helpful to have a framework of questions to help lead you to your why. So, start by asking yourself these 7 questions and then present them to your team as well. What programs, initiatives, and bedrocks are core to our classroom, school, or district? What do we already do well? Who are we currently serving well? And who are we currently not serving? What are our core beliefs about our students and school? How are the arts viewed and represented currently in this school and community? And when we think about an ideal learning environment, what do we want to see, hear, and feel? These 7 questions will help you begin to craft a vision for what you want your classroom, school, or district to look like. And then you can begin to see how arts integration can help you achieve this. These questions also allow you to continue doing what is already working and to cut what isn't. That way, you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And people can begin to recognize that this isn't meant as one more thing, but rather a way to supercharge your efforts in the best interest of students. Now, another way to think about this whole idea of what's our why is to remember that the arts are an access point for everyone. Now, think about it. Everyone connects with at least one art form in some way, whether that's singing in the shower or doodling while listening to a lecture. Everyone has an arts access point. It's our job as teachers to find that access point and use that as an avenue for students to explore ideas, share their perceptions, and to make sense of the world around them. Arts integration is an approach that not only embraces our humanity, but allows us to experience humanity together.